All right, we're looking at solving quadratic equations. What makes it a quadratic is that we have x squared, and then we have a x, which is not there, and then we have a constant. So we have x squared, an x, and a constant. Now, this term may be missing. That's okay. That does happen on perfect ones. But right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to solve this by factoring. What does that mean? We need to factor that last number. So we're going to take that last number, we're going to place it right here, and we're going to split it up into all of its factors. Factors means what two numbers can be multiplied to make 32. So we know that 32 and 1, if I multiply 32 times 1, I get 32. What I need to do then is add it or subtract it to each other. 32 plus 1, 32 minus 1, and does it become 12? Well, no, we're not going to get 12 out of that. So we're going to continue on. It's an even number, so I know it's divisible by 2. And I know it's 16. And you can simply take 32 divided by 2 on your calculator and get 16. So if I add 16 plus 2, I get 18. If I subtract 16 minus 2, I end up with 14. So that's not 12. So I need to go on. Here's a trick. If I add 3 plus 2, the two numbers that are there, I get 5. Does 5 go into 3? No. Therefore, 3 is not a factor of 32. 4, you just have to know that 32 is actually a factor of 4. So what is 32 divided by 4? 8. If I add 8 and 4, do I get 12? Yes, I do. So I can stop right there. I put my parentheses and set them equal to 0, because what we're doing is splitting this apart. So I need to know that I can take 8 times 4 to get this term, and I can add or subtract to get to this one. So what I'm going to do is our variable is x, so we put the x's in there. We put the 8 and the 4, and then what we need to look at is this wonderful little idea. I look at this number and this one, or this sign and that sign. If it's positive, that means there's two choices. It can either be a plus plus here and here, or it can be a negative and a negative, because the only way, negative and a negative here, the only way to get a positive 32 when multiplying is multiplying a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. So now I need to choose between a positive positive or a negative negative. I look at this one. What is that sign? It's a negative, so it's negative, so it's negative negative. If this is a positive, it's plus plus or minus minus, and I have it up on the board up there. And I'll have a reference sheet worked up here shortly. So then I look at the second number. Well, it's negative, so it's negative negative. Now we check it. Check this out. Negative 8 times negative 4 is positive 32. You can check that on your calculator. Negative 8 plus negative 4 is negative 12. We're done. Oh, by the way, x times x is x squared. You see how we got that? Add these two together, I get the negative 12. Multiply these two together, I get the 32. Multiply the x's together, I get x squared. But we're not exactly done, because we have to set these to what? To 0. Each one of these is equal to 0. So x minus 8, we do its opposite, which is plus 8. Our opposite operations are gone. We have x equals 8. And we have x minus 4, that's this one here, equal to 0. This one is this one here, equal to 0. And we do that. We solve this one. Well, we're just going to add 4 to both sides, opposite operations. X equals, and 0 plus 4, like 0 plus 8, is 4. So these are our x's. And I can show you on this one that we did Monday. This is a quadratic. It looks a little bit like this. It's a little looped on the bottom here. But a quadratic looks like this. Here's your y-axis. Here's your x-axis. where it crosses the x-axis, those are the points that we just figured out. It's 8, 0, and 4, 0, but these are the x's, or the x-intercepts, or the zeros is what we call them. All those names you might need to know because it depends on what they ask you on in a particular test that you're taking. So once again, what we're going to do is take this last number. The absolute value of it is fine, 21. We're going to factor that. The first one is 21 times 1 is 21. If we add them or subtract them, 21 plus 1 is 22. 21 minus 1 is 20. That does not give me 4. So we need to go on. Guys, 21 is an odd number, therefore 2 does not go into it. If I add 2 and 1 together, I get 3. That means 3 goes into 21, and it happens to be 7 times. If I add 7 plus 3, I get 10. If I subtract 7 minus 3, I get what? I get 4. I stop. I make my parentheses. I set those equal to 0. My variable is an n. And then my numbers are going to be 7 and 3. Everybody with me so far? Let me understand, we're going to take that number, the absolute value of that number, we're going to factor it until we find the two numbers that will get us to 4. Now we're going to worry about the signs. This sign, take a look up here, take a look. That sign is a negative. That means that each of these, one has to be positive and the other has to be negative, or negative positive. So that's because of this negative there. And I put that negative right here. It has to be one or the other. They have to be different. Because the only way you're going to get a negative number is if one of these numbers is positive and one of these numbers is negative. Now, look at this sign in front of the 4. What is it? Positive. So the larger number is going to be what? Positive. So which one's larger, 7 or 3? 7. So we put a plus in front of that one and we make the other one a minus. Now, you should always check it. Enter it in your calculator. Positive 7 times negative 3 is negative 21. If I add them together, 7 plus negative 3, I'm going to get 4. Positive 4. By the way, 2 n's times each other is n squared. What we're doing is breaking it down into this. This is FOIL. You guys did this in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And I think we did a little bit of it at the beginning of the year. I know that doesn't look like a number symbol there, but it's number, not a hashtag. So if the number you're factoring is a negative, they need to be different. And you see they're different. So if that second number is a positive, that means that your larger number is the positive one, and then the other one's the opposite. If this were a negative right here, take a look up there where my finger is. If that was a negative, then the larger number would be negative, which means it would be negative 7 and plus 3, but that's not negative. We might go through some examples of those. There we go. Check that out. There's one right there. So we're going to take the absolute value of 35, which is 35, and we're going to factor that. The first term, as always, is 35 times 1. Well, if I add them together, I'm going to get 36. If I subtract it, I'm going to get 34. That's not 2. And we're just looking at the absolute values of these right now. 35, guys, is not even. Therefore, 2 will not go into it. We can check 3. If I add 3 and 5 together, 5, 6, 7, 8. 3 does not go into 8. 3 is not a factor. You can check 4 because it's just, you just have to know that 4, does 4 go into 35? It does not. That's the only trick, is the last two numbers are divisible by it, and it's not. 5. It ends in 5 or a 0. It's divisible by 5. So yes, it's divisible by 5. So 35 divided by 5 is what? 7, right? If I add the 2 together, I get 12. If I subtract the 2, I get what? If I take 7 minus 5, I get 2. Those are our numbers. We're going to put our parentheses, set that equal to 0. We're going to take our variable, which is n. We're going to take our two numbers, which is 7 and 5. Hey, you know what I didn't do in the last one? And we'll get back to it, but we'll go. All right. So it's a negative, right? The number we factored, a negative. That means one has to be positive, one has to be negative in either order. So we look at the second number. What is the second number, the second term here? It's what? Negative. Therefore, the larger number is going to be, it'll be negative. The 7 is larger, it's negative. Then the other one, make the other one positive. All right, well, we didn't do on the last one, and we're going to go back to it in a second, but we forgot to set these to 0. So n minus 7 equals 0. Make sure we add 7. Our opposite operations are gone. 0 plus 7 is 7. And then we're going to do n plus 5 equals 0. So we're subtract 5 from both sides of the equation. N equals negative 5. So those are our two answers, our two x's, x-intercepts, zeros. So going back to, if you don't have that, I'll give you a second here. Going back to number 2, because we didn't do that. There's number 2. I didn't set these to 0. Why? Because this is n plus 7 equals 0 and n minus 3 equals 0. So we need to do that. So subtract 7 from both sides. N equals negative 7. And add 3 to both sides. N equals 3. And there's our x's, our x-intercepts, our zeros. By the way, do this step. I understand that it's just simply moving it over to the other side and making it its opposite sign. But when we end up with a number in front of the n, we're going to have to do a little bit more, and we will, coming probably day 5 of doing factoring, because there's going to end up being a number here in the front, which changes everything. Okay? I'll have these notes available for you. So here's 4. Anybody tell me what number we're taking to factor? We're going to take the 14. And our first factor, as always, is 14 and 1. By the way, sometimes this does work out. 14 plus 1 is 15. 14 minus 1 is 13. That's not 9. We go on. 4 is even, so it is divisible by 2. That's 7. Can I add or subtract 7 and 2 to get 9? Yeah, 7 plus 2 is 9. So my two numbers are 7 and 2. I draw my parentheses, put it on equal. Put 7 and 2 in here. My variable is n, so I put n. Just don't automatically immediately put x's in there. All right, we look at the sign of the number we just factored. It's plus, so it has to be either plus plus or minus minus. We look at the second term. It's what? It's plus, so we have to go down here and we have to choose the plus plus. Now, you need to check it. 7 times 2 is 14. 7 plus 2 is 9. And that is correct. So these are our factors right here. So if you're asked for factors, this is as far as you need to go. If you're asked for the x's or the intercepts or the zeros, you're going to need to set each one of those to 0, and that's why it's called the zeros. So we're subtracting 7 from both sides. Chris, you writing this down? 0 minus 7 is negative 7. And we need to set x plus 2 to 0 and solve it. Do its opposite operation. and n equals 0 minus 2 is negative 2. Those are our x's. Our x-intercepts are zeros. That's all we did. Set them equal to 0 because each set of this equals 0. Hopefully you guys had that. I'll try to get you a little reference sheet for the whether it's plus plus minus minus. Give you a little interpretation of each one of them. It's just something you need to memorize. If that number's positive, they're either both going to be positive or both negative. You look at that number and you use what it is, positive. So you put positive, positive. If this number were negative, you would use negative, negative. Then look at that number changes. However, if the number that you are factoring is a negative, they're opposites. One needs to be positive, one needs to be negative. The larger one's going to be what the second term is, negative. So your larger number then is negative. We looked at this one. The term was negative, so we know they need to be opposites. We looked at the second term, it's positive, so your larger number is positive. So realistically, that's all you need to understand on that. All right, got any questions, let me know.